Okay, the time has come. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'm Larry Santora, the president for this year. So if we can all stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. On the agenda, we have what's called a roll call. I'm just going to call it, let's introduce ourselves. So if we can start on the end here.
I'm Darren Shaw, COO.
Chuck Hill, Vice President.
Brad Nickham, Treasurer.
Janine Grippo, Assistant Treasurer.
Sherry Gruppe, Secretary.
Sean Kretterman, Director.
Matt Cambick, Director.
Charlie Shawless, Recording Secretary.
Thank you very much. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of two board meetings, the one on December 18th and the one on January 7th. Those were all provided to you to review. So if I can have a motion, please. Sean?
I move to approve the minutes for the December 18th, 2024 meeting.
All right. Do I have a motion for the January 7th meeting?
You want me to second that motion?
Well, go ahead, Chuck. Okay. Chuck seconds it. So we'll take the vote. Any comments from the... You know, let me get my other glasses on. I'm sorry. Oh, there are people here. Okay. Any comments from the residents here? Hearing none, going to have a vote for the all in favor? Any opposed? All right, let's go on to the next one, the January 7th meeting. Do we have a motion? Janine? Oh,
Sorry. I move we approve the minutes of the January 7, 2025 Board of Directors meeting.
do we have a second?
I'll second it, Larry.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board? From the residents? All in favor? Any opposed? One opposed. Sean, okay, that passes. We have a directors. We did this. Can we go into the next slide, please? You get my comments now. So this is the first time I'm up here doing this with all you folks. And as I look out, I see some of my neighbors and I see a lot of residents. I also see the community sitting here. And to me, I look at that and I go, what does the community mean to me? Well, I've been told we have 1,300 golfers here. And then we have like 800 or 900 pickleball players and 600, 700 tennis players. You know, we have this new thing called cornhole now that has around 500 members. We have our swim team that has won all kinds of awards. We have our gals that do the swim aerobics every morning. We have our mahjong people. We have our card players. We have all of those folks that go to Jeanette's 40-some-odd classes every morning. And you know, to me, this is our community. And so that's a real heavy burden, because when the board has to make a decision on anything, they always have to ask themselves, what's best for the community? You know, not what's best for me, not what's best for you, but really what's best for the community. And sometimes that's tough, because sometimes we'll make a decision that some people don't agree with, but most people might. And so we always hear from those that don't agree, and sometimes we hear from those that do. So stating that, let me go into the next item, and if I can have the next slide, please. I'm going to talk about something we've been working on that, if you've listened to Denise Anthony, she has been ramming this down our throats, but Denise, I just want to let you know, we have been working on a solution. This has to do with the maintenance facility. If you'll remember, when Robeson left us here, we had a golf facility for Mountain View. And then last year, we added a cam crew. And that crew was stuffed in with the golf crew. And the facilities were unacceptable. They really couldn't handle 2 different crews. So what we did was, the only way to solve that problem was to find some land somewhere that we could expand the facility. Well, we had a survey done here, and there basically wasn't any place to go. So we were able to go to the state and ask them for some land. This is a picture of it, and you read, I don't know, can you see it up there? Okay, you see it in blue. What you see is some land that, after a lot of work, the state has offered to sell us. Now, we have a lot of hoops we have to go through, but it has gone through the higher-ups, and they have come back and said, yes, in fact, Saddlebrook will sell you that acre plus the land. That acre plus the land is behind our existing facility. It's 130 plus or minus a few feet deep. It's 400 feet wide on the widest part, and it's 275 feet wide on the narrow part. So what you see here is that there are a couple of homes that would be impacted by us coming to the road with that facility, because we own that land there. So also, where the blue line is coming south, there's a row of bushes. And so if we were to put the wall behind the bushes, then the people who live right there will not even see it. And this will give us plenty of space for future expansion. So what's happened here is that some of the things we have to do is, one, we have to have the guys come out and survey it. We have to have the people come out and look at the plants that are there. And if there's any cactus, they'll have to tag to be removed. We also have to get the people to come out and see if there's any graveyards there, or where the Indians used to live, and things like that. And after that, it has to be advertised for 10 weeks. And then we go to a bidding process where we will bid on this. And so what the state has told me is that this land is landlocked. We own the front portion, the state owns the back portion. So they don't believe that there will be anybody on God's green earth other than us that would bid for this, and we have to pay the appraised value. We don't know what that is, okay? But we do know that this is not an amenity. This is really a need for this community. So when we look at what is the best thing for this community, we look at this opportunity, and this is one of those things, all right? So normally it takes 14 to 18 months. I have a fellow that's been working with me on this, and he said I can expedite this and get it done in 10 to 14 months. So by the end of 25, we may be in a position to buy this land. So by the end of 25, we have to have money set aside, and it will come out of the SIF fund to pay for this. If it doesn't happen until 26, we have to have the money in 26 available to pay for this. Once that happens, then we can start planning for what's going to go on this property, and that would be shop space and maybe some office space and things like that. That will happen after we buy the property. So right now, step one is making sure we get the property. Step two would be to go forward with plans to take care of not only the CAM people, but also some of the buildings in there for the golf people are really in bad shape. We could put something in here that would take care of both, and then convert that area that is really in bad shape to maybe something like warehouse space or something. But we have lots of opportunities, okay? So this is something we've been working on, and Denise, I want you to know that you were heard, okay? All right, and that's about all I have to say right now. We'll have questions and answers afterwards. So I'm going to turn this over to Darren Shaw now, our new COO, and we're going to let him kind of run the show from here on out. All right? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So it's been 8 weeks pretty much since I've been on board, and I'm still in the process of getting acclimated, as you might imagine. It's pretty complex and dynamic business out there, but I've made some good headway trying to develop relationships with the people I'm working with and trying to understand what they're doing and how I might be able to improve their efforts. So there's still a lot of work for me to do to get to a position where I'm confident in all of my decision making, but I'm definitely on a right track. So I wanted to report on a few things. Age verification study, right? We're a senior community, active adult community. Federal law requires that we do a biannual age certification survey. We got that package all ready to go out, and we were presented with a petition to amend the CC&Rs, and we'll talk about that later in this meeting. But the package to amend the CC&Rs will probably take precedent over the age verification survey, and we'll probably release his age verification survey probably sometime late March or early April. So when you get that notification, please fill out the form. At least one person in every household needs to be of the age of 55 or older. The Rocky Terrace house, the house that's was in foreclosure, it's owned by HUD. We're trying to figure out what to do with that. We recently had a meeting with representatives from Congressman Siscomani's office, and we expressed our concern. We also invited Saddlebrook One general manager because Vivian's dealing with similar situations down there as well. And we made our appeal to Siscomani's office, and hopefully we'll hear something back in terms of how they may be able to influence HUD so that we can do some type of deal to get an owner in this home out there that's going to take care of it. The emergency action plan was recently updated here by Dale Tate. Evacuation drills were conducted at just about all of the facilities the last 2 weeks. We renewed our master package of insurance policies, right? A business like this has to have a number of different insurance policies. Last month, we renewed our workers' compensation policy, and this month, we renewed the package of policies, which is general liability, property, fiduciary, liability umbrella, movable equipment, just about the whole array of different insurance coverages that we need. Employee practices insurance, EPLI, and that package came to about $270,000, and it was renewed here effective March 1st. Reserve study. Civil Code says that the association needs to conduct a reserve study every 3 years. I'm of the opinion that you need to conduct a reserve study every year because things change from year to year, and waiting every 3 years, I think we set ourselves up for potentially some big changes that we didn't see coming because we might not have been paying attention for that 3-year period. So we're going to bring the reserve study in-house rather than use a third party. We've purchased the software to do that, and we're going to embark on that initiative here very soon. In fact, we just rolled out some comments to our management team the other day, and we're going to start that process here in March. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a much better job than the third party, and once we get the system down, which I've done before, once we get the system down, we'll be able to do that every year, and that certainly will limit or minimize surprises that an every 3-year cycle might present. Here at the theater, we're going to be adding some additional lighting to make the stairs easier to navigate, easier to see. That contract was signed a few weeks back, and that work should start here soon. We are embarking on reserving capital projects that are part of the 2025 budget. There's more than $3 million in projects scheduled this year, and our team has put together a schedule to try and fit all those projects into a calendar year. It's certainly a lot of coordinating, a lot of management, and we'll be working on carrying out those projects here over the course of the next 12 months or 10 months. 2 big projects that are part of that reserve is the road work that needs to take place this year. Ray Kuhn, our general manager, is working on that right now. We should start some of that road work here first week in February. And also Mountain View Clubhouse is scheduled for a refresh. And There's a bunch of money for that project, $600,000 or $700,000, I believe, and we're trying to figure out the best use of that money and what really needs to be spent versus what has to be spent. So we went back to a design company we had been working with here a couple years ago to try and refresh that conversation and see what the best use of our funds are. So that project will probably start here, I would imagine, sometime in the summer. We hired a new auditing firm this year, and our chief financial officer is working with them to get them on board. I think there's a meeting in early February. Civil Code says that audit has to be done within 6 months of the end of the fiscal year. So we need to have that audit done by the end of June. And also, finally, we are taking a look at all the club license agreements. There's a number of clubs that have license agreements with the board or the association that detail their authorities, that detail responsibilities and expectations, and we'll be looking at those club license agreements. We'll be bringing them back to the February working session to try and get them to be a little bit more consistent and formatted the same way. So if you're interested in that, that topic will be on the February board working session. And that's all I have for my report. There's a number of things I could continue to talk about because there's so many things going on here, but I thought these are pretty important. And we'll move on now to December financial highlights. And before we invite our Chief Financial Officer up, Terry, I think we wanted to hear a couple words from our treasurer, Brad.
I'll just speak from here. Thank you, Darren. One of the reasons I decided to run for the board was I felt there was a negative perception of our community's financial position that was unwarranted. And I felt that the messaging around our real strength was being underappreciated. What I think you will learn from Terry's presentation is that we have an extremely strong and liquid balance sheet. We have excess free cash flow from operations of somewhere between $4 and $5 million a year. And we are well positioned to maintain all our assets with some moving projects around and making some compromises without having to do extraordinary things like special assessments, etc. And I want that narrative to stick. It's the truth, and we're going to make it happen. That's all I've got. Thanks.
All right, good afternoon. I am Terry Dempsey, Director of Finance. And we're going to review December and 2024 year-to-date. I want you to keep in mind as we're going through this, all of these numbers are subject to change. We haven't finished our audit yet, so as soon as that gets completed, then those numbers will become final, okay? So we'll run through cash. Seems like that's getting smaller and smaller. I'll try to make these screens bigger as we're going forward. But cash at December 31st, we had operating cash of $4.2 million. $2 million of that was in investments, and the rest is in checking and savings. And it's an increase from November of 17.7%. Our December and May cash are usually higher with starting to collect dues and such at those time periods. Our reserve cash was at $6.9 million. 5.5 million of that is in investments. The rest is in checking and savings. And that's an increase of 22.7% from November. And CIF cash is $1.6 million, which increased 3% from November. So our combined cash at the end of December was $12,900,000, and that was an increase of 18% over November. Okay. All right, next slide. Some of the things we did for 2024, We started investing our idle cash in money market accounts. As a result, interest income increased 36.5% from what we did in 2023, so good move there. Paid off the golf loan to the Alliance Bank, so that amount is gone. We reimbursed the reserves from the operating account for the 2017 golf course purchase, so that's cleared out. And we completed $1.8 million in reserve projects. We had $108,000 in CapEx projects completed and $161,000 of CIF projects. So a good productive year. All right, next slide. Here's our reserve projects. Mountain View, we did $220,000 in projects. Desert View, $90,000 in projects. The Preserve had $108,000 in projects. And Property Cam was $140,000 in projects, with Golf getting $138,000 of projects in 2024. Roads, we spent $653,000 in roads, and we had some carryover projects from the previous year, which amounted to $455,000. So that gives our total reserve expenditures for 2024 is the $1.8 million I just mentioned. Other projects were $300,000, and our total expenditures in capital projects came in about $2.1 million for 2024. Okay, next slide. So this is our summary income statement. As you can see, our revenue is up 4.2% from 2023. Our amenity subsidy is better than 2023 by 12.8%. So a lot of work being done in those areas to control costs. Our operating expenses did increase 12.5% from 2023, and our total net income was $174,000, which is about 48% less than what it was in 2023. And again, some of these numbers will change as we go through year-end close and adjustments and things like that. So, next slide, please. To go over golf results, golf revenue for 2024 increased 6.5% from what it was in 2023, but the expenses for golf did increase 3.1%. So the golf subsidy was $965,000, and that's compared to the golf subsidy that was in 2023 of $1,035,000, and it's better than 2023 by 6.8%. And we lost about, my estimate is about $600,000 in revenue from the closure of Mountain View up until, I think it was May timeframe. So that would account for a lot of that. Next slide. So our next slide is F&B, is our restaurants. The revenue for 2024 was 16% better than what it was in 23. So good job driving revenue there. A lot of hard work went into that. Better service, better food quality and such. The expenses were higher by 9.2%. And overall, the F&B subsidy was $440,000 compared to 2023, which was $602,000. So that's better by 27%. So outstanding job by the restaurants, and they're continuing to improve as we speak. Okay, and then
Terry, excuse me, before you move on, could I make a comment, please?
Sure.
In that, put that $440,000 back up there. Inside that $440,000 subsidy was $125,000 that we put on the backs of the food and beverage operation with our loyalty program. That program was discontinued. So the food and beverage operation subsidy was really $315,000, an extraordinary achievement.
Thank you. Okay, last slide. Okay, so this is where all the dues goes, basically. So for 2024, we collected $3,500 per rooftop. $138 of that went to the restaurants. $1,068 went to reserves. $104 went to patrol. $447 of dues went to common area maintenance. $579 went to facilities. $857 of that went to G&A, general administration. $22 for fitness and $284 for golf. And that's what I have. All this information can be found on the SB HOA2 website at My HOA2, governance policies, financial reports, monthly financials. And if you can just put that, I don't know if I have that slide up there. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I have, and thank you very much.
Is Ray Adams here? Come on up, Ray. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Well, I want to talk a little bit about something that the Finance Committee has gone through here in the last month or so. We got a call from Larry Santora, who wanted us to find $500,000 of liquid funds to be provided in 25 and 26. The intent was that it would be designated for the CIF with the funds to begin construction of a maintenance facility. You saw a little bit about the plans for that in the opening remarks. So we looked at our investment portfolio, and currently there is a company, Senora Investment Company, which manages a corporate bond portfolio for us. There's currently 47 bonds in there, valued at just over $1 million. In 25, maturing bonds are 192,000, plus whatever interest has been accrued. And in 26, maturing bonds of 318,000, plus interest. And those of you who are quick with numbers will realize that that's a bit over the $500,000 that we were looking for. There are some issues, and SIC normally uses the proceeds from maturing bonds to invest in short-term, high-quality bonds, corporate bonds, and add them to our portfolio. The problem is that the rates are just not very attractive at the instant. Our money is locked up until maturity, the bond maturity. Most are 2 to 3 years. We even have a few that are out to 2032. If you look at the bond rates, the average portfolio returns in 25 were 3.9%. In 26, they're projected to be 3.3%, and in the remainder of the holdings, 4%. There is an alternative available, of course. Some of you are already utilizing this in your own personal finances. The money market accounts are currently quoted roughly 4%. Those accounts provide for a lower risk than corporate bonds and at a reasonably competitive rates. The accounts are liquid, and the FDIC insures those accounts for up to $250,000 per account. So there are some clear benefits. So we have some recommendations, and the first of those is to move our assets currently managed by SIC to a financial services company. Fidelity Investment's a good choice, and we think it's a good choice because we currently are holding a lot of investments with them. The more that we can consolidate that into a single organization where we know the people, we know how they work, they know what their practices are, the easier it makes for the corporation to be able to conduct business. We think that the funds that are generated by maturing bonds be moved to a money market account or many money market accounts. And finally, to hold all of our bonds in the portfolio to maturity. So we come up with some conclusions. The bonds maturing in 25 and 26 satisfy the request for liquid assets of at least $500,000 and moving our holdings to a financial services firm, and at redemption, moving the cash to a money market account provides liquidity with very little risk, comparable returns. With that being said, I'd like to request a motion. The Finance Committee requests a board motion to allow the recommendations as outlined in the presentation. That means it's up to you guys.
I move move our assets currently managed by SIC to a financial services company, preferably Fidelity. Investments would be a good choice. Move funds generated by maturing bonds to a money market account or accounts. Hold all bonds in portfolio to maturity.
I'm sorry. I second.
Any discussion?
Larry, is it your intent to put this $500,000 into the CIF?
It is CIF funds, so it will stay there, but it will be invested in the money market accounts. We're earning over 4%. The other thing that Ray did not say was that currently we're paying 0.75% in the management to oversee these bonds. So our return is really a lot less than what was shown.
I think we need to follow up. It's my understanding that those funds are reserve funds.
The bonds are in the SIF.
I don't think so, Larry.
Okay, we can verify that, but
We need to verify it because I believe that money is reserve money, and if it is, you cannot move it into the SIF.
we wouldn't move, if it was reserve money, we wouldn't map it. We've looked at this, and Ray, you want to, you don't want to say anything.
We need a definitive answer, and I don't have one at the instant.
All right, Terry, do you know where the bonds are being held? Right now, they're being held in the reserve. So where is the SIF funds being held? In a Schwab account. So we've moved the Schwab account over. We still want to take the bonds and let them go to maturity so that it frees them up because we're not making really anything on them. So in this case, what we would do, we would keep the motion the same.
Yes.
To let these bonds mature. They would go into the investment account in the reserve, and when it comes time to buy the land, if we can swing that, we would use SIF funds to purchase the land from the state. Make sense?
Yeah, I am good with taking the maturing bonds and putting them with Fidelity. I just wanted to make sure that everybody on this board understood that those bonds are in the reserve fund.
Okay.
Understood, and it really doesn't change the motion though, but I appreciate the point.
Yeah, it doesn't change the motion. So any other questions from the floor? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? I guess not. Everyone raised their hand. Okay, so that passes. Thank you, Ray. Come on up, Bill.
So used to saying good morning, but good afternoon, everybody. New year, new slides, new board, new COO. Not a new me. Bill McGinn, Director of Operations, and all-around good guy. We'll keep it simple today. So again, new year, new money, new projects, and there's way too many of me to start saying how many projects we got, so I just outlined a few big ones that we took care of. So about 3 weeks into this, we've already finished the recon room, which is in the Mesquite building. It was in bad need of repair, at least a section of it for the spin cycle, so my spin cyclists are probably pretty happy here. We've also finished upgrading the pools with the Clear Comfort and the chemical monitor systems. A little bit more on that later. Electrical installed at the preserve for 2 new coolers for our wine for the sale of it. So you'll be seeing those go in as soon as they come in. The electrical's done, and that was done in-house. The project team is in place for the Mountain View Bar and Grill refurbishment. We're looking forward to that. As Darren has mentioned, we're working with a company, 180 Design, and we're waiting to see what they come back with us. So it's already wheels in motion, kind of happy about that, and I'm hoping to have that done by the third quarter. Automatic door openers, I don't know if the gentleman's here, but they are going in. All the electrical at the Mountain View was installed yesterday. At the Preserve will be done Monday, and then the automatic door openers at these restrooms will be installed. Let's see, where else we at? Engaging with the contractors to receive estimates for reserve projects. I mean, we've got painting the Preserve, plastering the pool up there, plastering the spa, redecking. I've got walls to paint, sidewalks to fix. I mean, we're just engaging with everybody we possibly can to get these projects done. And what I'm excited to announce is that we have a new maintenance program loaded up in our computers and our phones, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. Next slide, please. So here you have the recon room. Basically, they were in-house project that we had finished to assist the spin cyclers so that they're not on uneven ground. It was a project that was started about 1.5 years ago. They were able to get half of it, and then funds ran out, and I made it my mission to make sure we got it done this year. So 2 weeks in and we're done. So good job on my team. Next slide, please. So here is I've been getting a lot of questions about the systems that are in the pools and the spas, and everybody's seeing the little bubbles that are going into the pools. Well, that's the system working. When you don't see the bubbles, please call me. That means we got a problem and I've got to get it addressed. But the photos show the new Clear Comfort system. It's the photo that would be on your right. This system pumps oxygen into the pools, or breaks the oxygen down, which allows the chemicals to be absorbed and then transferred to a filtration system, which is collected. And if you do a lot of swimming, you've probably noticed a lot clearer water. I know I have, a lot clearer water both in the pools and the spas. The other systems are a monitoring system, which help us keep the chemicals balanced throughout the whole 7 bodies of water. And right now, we're still collecting data on it to make sure everything's working. And we are working on a few kinks that are going on, but all in all, I think it's going to work out pretty good for us. I'm already starting to see a little bit of chemical savings as far as cost goes and usage. So wait to see. Give me 6 months and let me know, and I'll let you guys know what the numbers are. Okay, next slide, please. This is something I'm really happy to announce because the current system that we had in place called North Star was a cumbersome and burdening system, not only for me, but for you, the residents. And as I always say, my 3 goals are financial responsibility, communication, and your satisfaction. So what this program does. So the new maintenance program is called Upkeep. Upkeep is a program that allows my team to basically communicate with each other almost instantaneously. For instance, if there is a problem here in the building, we're able to upload that problem, take a picture of it, describe it. It goes to my administrator, who then creates a work order, which goes out to my team, and my team gets it. They assign a technician, the technician goes out. If it takes us longer than 48 hours to get back on that app, I'm questioning what's going on, but usually I have an answer within about 4 hours. So if it's not fixed within 4 hours, I'd be surprised if it's a simple problem. So what's coming to the community? Why does this help you? So we're doing what's called a QR code or a quick response code. What this does is you're going to be able to scan it. I don't know if, and there will be, we're going to implement this Monday, but there will be an explanation, a push, both on the Monday message, but here on Friday on how to use this QR code, which you will see pop up around the buildings here on Monday. This will give you, the resident, access to basically me directly. So what happens is you scan the QR code, answer a few questions, name, email address, phone number, and a description. You can take a photo if you want of the problem, upload it, and then tell me where the location is. And almost instantaneously, it goes to the administrator sends it to my team gets on it, creates a work order, gets everything going. But the nice thing about this is, as we start working on it, you will see a response saying in progress. You will also see when it's completed. So you don't have to sit around and wait. You don't have to wait for a phone call from me or an email or however you want me to communicate with you. So I got a feeling it's going to be something, once we get the bugs worked out of it, you're going to really appreciate. Again, this app or this QR code is basically for the facilities. I am noticing a few discrepancies between what people presume I do here as to what I actually do here. So it's more of, I handle the facilities. This building, the lights out, I make sure my team fixes it. If there's a dead bush outside, I don't fix that. That's not me. That would be Michael. So please, there will be explanations around this QR code to let you know what I am responsible for. And I don't mind answering your questions, your phone calls. And by all means, those of you that have called me know that I will answer any question as truthfully as I know the answer to it. And if I don't, I will send it to the right people that will. So I hope this program right here really streamlines what we need to do to keep this community up and running, and as quick and as fast as possible, give you guys responses so that it's not it turns into a bigger problem than it really has to be. So I thank you guys. Welcome to the new year. Welcome to the new funds, and I hope this year is just as exciting as last year. Take care.
Okay, so the 2025 Strategic Plan and Board Manual. Next slide, please. This document's been in development since before I came here. I attended a few meetings, and there was a lot of collaboration that took place to put the document together, the strategic plan and the board manual. And it's pretty much ready for board consideration at this point. So does anybody want to make a motion? Yes, question?
I make motion to adopt the new strategic plan board manual for 2025.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
And is there any further comment?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'd like to know why the board meeting in November has been changed from Tuesday to Thursday.
That was done a week early because of the Thanksgiving week, and it gives the finance people a couple extra days to come up with the financials. It's the one-time change.
I thank you for the explanation. That's why I asked, because I had no input into the board manual. So my questions are because I didn't have any input into it. All right, the other question I have is, find it here. When the appeals teams were decided, I am wanting to make sure that the people who are on the appeals teams this year are not all new or not all possibly not going to be on the board in 2026, because I think we need continuity. So I sent to you, Larry, some of the changes that I thought might be better, not because of how many numbers of people have, but I want to have continuity. I did not hear back from you, but I'm assuming that you are going to keep it the way you decided on the 7th of January.
Yeah, I passed your request around, and everyone wanted to keep things that way. And you are the appeals person there on the, especially the big one, you know, for late payment folks. That's our biggest appeals portion.
Right, that's not my question, though. It has nothing to do with workload. It has to do with continuity in years to come. I was never questioning workload. And then the other thing I have, and we didn't talk about it today at the chairs meeting, but I'm concerned for our chairs that the chairs meeting is only going to happen every other month. Our chairs have a lot to tell us, and I think if we don't hear from them every month, it's going to double the time they're going to have. Now, I know our meeting was short today, but we were missing a couple of chairs who usually give big reports. Unit reps wasn't there and golf wasn't there. So I would like to see that we consider going back to a monthly chair meeting, and if that doesn't work or it all goes really fast like it did today, then maybe we could go back to every other month. But I think to have a chair meeting every other month is not allowing our committees to tell us what they need to tell us.
I think we can put that out to the committees, the chairs, and have them respond. And if they feel that way, we can do that.
Yeah, because they've had no input about the chair's meeting.
We'll ask for their input then.
I thank you for doing that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Any comments from the members in the audience? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. "2025 Strategic Plan Report Out, number 1. So this comes out of the strategic plan, obviously, and the topic is governance. To adopt and utilize best practices for strategic policy-based governance with a strong emphasis on achieving organizational alignment while also prioritizing guidance, direction, accountability, and performance planning to set clear expectations and measure progress for building trust and enhancing community engagement." So there are a number of objectives listed under that goal. And produce a 25 board manual, that was done just now. Update the new board member orientation process. The newly structured process took place on January 7th. Establish a board packet process for board meetings. We're still working that out. This is our first meeting, trying to put together a new model. We had a few glitches along the way, a few last minute changes, but I think over the course of the next couple months, we'll dial that in precisely. Define or clarify expectations for committee roles. This is addressed in the board manual. Enhance communication and coordination between the board, COO, staff, and residents. Coffee with the COO, monthly perspectives in the For the Record, and monthly management report to the board. Provides the board with a great deal of information in terms of all the things that staff is working on and how we interact with the board. Effectively manage governing documents and rules enforcement. This is taking place currently. Ensure 2025 board manual synchronization with staff and committees. That's complete. Now that the board manual and strategic plan is approved, I'll be taking this information back to my management team, and we'll develop goals and objectives that align under the board's strategic plan. Maintain enhanced communication relations with Saddlebrook HOA1. I think I'm on course to develop a pretty good relationship with the general manager down there, Vivian. I've had the opportunity to meet with her on a few occasions. I've suggested to the board in my monthly management report that maybe a few times a year we get together with the HOA1 board and maybe have a mixture and just get to know one another a little bit more informally, so that those relationships can flourish a little bit more. So we'll be working on that over the course of the next few months to maybe get one of those events started. And update the strategic plan regularly throughout the year. That will be an ongoing objective. Next slide, please. Strategic plan report out number 4, commitment to our team. Meet or exceed the state retention rates. And AZ turnover rate for 2023 for non-F&B was 3.8. We were just over by 0.11 at 3.91. And the AZ turnover rate for 2023 for F&B was 7.4. We beat that goal with a rate of 5.35. Support and fund training programs were unjustified. HR went to a training program in Phoenix this year. Safety training was provided monthly to all employees. And I'm a big proponent of continued development in terms of education that can help our managers do their jobs better. I think with the knowledge, learning how to apply that knowledge, I think that we can provide a better product and a better value to our members. Provide performance incentives and recognition programs. We recognized over 55 employees this year with our Spin the Wheel incentive at the employee recognition event. There was also an annual bonus program in place. Ensure wages and benefits are benchmarked annually at a minimum to be competitive. We worked with 3 HOAs this year in the area to make a wage comparison. We'll be doing another benchmark here as we get into the budget development cycle later this spring, early summer. Ensure training programs and manuals are updated. We will analyze the employee handbook that's on our schedule for Q2 to make sure that it's current. Execute cross-training and succession planning programs for key positions. Discussions have been made regarding succession planning in all of our departments. Some of the departments are easier to plan for, some departments aren't, but we're going to have those discussions and try and find the best approach moving forward to make sure we do what's reasonable to have somebody in the pipeline for our management positions and the other positions on the team as well. Promote a safe work culture environment. Quarterly safety meetings with the safety committee are held, and we send safety topics and tests to the managers for their monthly meetings. So safety is really important. That's managed by our HR director. Does anybody have any questions about those 2 report outs? Okay, let's go ahead and move on then. Petition to amend the CC&Rs. Next slide, please. So on January 2nd, I was presented with a petition signed by 457 people. We validated all those signatures and matched them up with the current units. There were a few that were discarded because they didn't meet the criteria, but 457 valid petitioners are suggesting that the CC&Rs be amended. So a meeting date must be set by the board and a vote taken on the matter. There's direction in California, that's where I came from. There's direction in Arizona Civil Code, and there's also direction in our own governing documents. So petition to amend the CC&Rs, bylaws Article 2, Section 2 says, special meeting of the members may be called by the president, and this is in our bylaws, the president of the corporation, or by a majority of members of the board of directors, or by members having at least 10% of the vote entitled to be cast at such meeting. So 457 signatures exceed the 10%, so that's the driver behind the board being required to schedule a meeting. Arizona Statute 33-1804B says not fewer than 10 nor more than 50 days in advance of any meeting of the members, the secretary shall cause notice to be hand-delivered or sent prepaid by United States mail to the mailing address for each lot, parcel, or unit owner to any other mailing address designated in writing by a member. The notice shall state the date and time and place of the meeting. A notice of an annual, regular, or special meeting of the member shall also state the purpose for which the meeting is being called, including the general nature of any proposed amendment to the declaration, bylaws, changes, and assessments that require approval of the members, and any proposal to remove a director from the board or an officer. Next slide, please. Petition to amend the CC&Rs. The existing CC&R provision, Article 9, Section 2 reads, borrowing power. The association may borrow money in such amounts as such rates upon such terms and security and for such periods of time as is necessary or appropriate in the discretion of the board. So the board has pretty good latitude here given by the CC&Rs to borrow money when the board sees there's an opportunity to do that, and they vote and say this is what we need to do. There's really no parameters. The petition proposed language says the association during each calendar year at the discretion of the board may borrow money in an amount not to exceed 20% of that year's annual assessment, as long as the total indebtedness of the association will be less than $3 million. Should the board deem it necessary to borrow funds in an amount greater than 20% of that year's annual assessment, and or that would result in total indebtedness of the association being more than $3 million, then the board is required to bring this proposal to a vote of the membership. The proposal will be approved if a majority of the votes cast by the members is affirmative. The term borrowing in this section is defined to include capital leases, but not to include other types of leases like operating leases. CC&R's Section 8, or Article 8, Section 2 amendments Except as otherwise provided in this article, amendments, changes, or terminations must be approved by the declarant and by the owner of a majority of the lots, with one vote for each lot owned, including those owned by the declarant, either at a meeting of the members, and so on. So we were presented with a petition. More than 10% of the members signed the petition. The board's required to set a meeting date and conduct a vote. We met with the chairperson of the Inspector of Elections a couple times this last week to make sure that the election committee is on board. And we are suggesting that a special membership meeting be set for March 17th, 2025, and that the board authorizes us to proceed with the ballot vote. Now, as a matter of disclosure, I received a call yesterday from Robeson, and I was informed that Robeson will veto any vote taken by the membership. They do not want to entertain any CC&R amendments until they are gone from the community, until they sell their last lot, is the message that I received. So, inasmuch as Robeson says they're not going to sign off, the CC&Rs will probably not be amended. But that's not to say that we're still not required to conduct the vote. Arizona Civil Code does not make mention of a declarant when it talks about special meetings and petitions to hold special meetings. So this meeting and the vote will still take place, and it will go through its normal channels. We'll try and do as much of it as we can electronically, and that process will conclude if the board approves the March 17th date. People can drop their ballots off. It'll probably be held here. They can drop their ballots off in person if they haven't submitted them either by mail or electronically, and those votes will be tabulated and calculated by the election committee. We'll also be working with a third party to conduct the electronic voting process and tabulation as well, sort of like we did with the this year's election and the other ballot votes that were conducted this year. So that's where we're at on this amendment to amend the CC&R. So I would ask the board, is there a motion to accept the petition and set a special member meeting for March 17th, 2025, and proceed with the ballot vote?
I move we accept the petition and set a special meeting, member meeting, late February, and proceed with the ballot vote.
Can you change that, Janine, to March 17th?
Oh, I'm sorry. March 17th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion among the board?
Yes, sir. So, I have a couple of comments for all of you and the folks that will watch this at home. And then my first, when I heard about this, I went to Darren and I said, give me the industry standard, what's the practice? And he's advised me that normally boards do face limits on borrowing power. Have no issues with that. That's an industry practice. We should be working in concert with industry practice. Unfortunately for the petitioner here, they set a limit at $3 million. And so if you were to vote affirmatively for this, there was no connection to the CPI, Consumer Price Index. So there was no inflation proof on this $3 million. So I did a simple Google search to find out what the 2015 dollar, 10 years ago, would be worth today, and it's lost 33 cents in purchasing power. So that $3 million limit, in essence, 10 years from now would only be $2 million. The only flaw in this petitioner's proposal was the fact that they didn't link the cap to some kind of inflation mechanism. And so I would encourage people to understand that if you put an arbitrary limit in over time, that buying power gets smaller and smaller. I will also advise you all that our CC&Rs have been in place for 28 years. what would the purchasing power of $3 million be 28 years from now? And the last thing that I will point out is that in November of 2019, 2 former board members were working on CC&R amendments. And they took a proposal, much the same as this petitioner's proposal, to Robeson, and it was denied at that time. And so we do have a history of trying to implement this kind of a strategy, and we've faced the same barrier that we have consistently since 2019. Thank you.
Okay, and I have questions about just the mechanics of the whole thing. If we go ahead and vote this through, we're going to pay, from what Mike Brenny told us at the chairs meeting, approximately $2,000 for the vote,
At least.
at least. And then it's going to cost us, because that's what it says we have to do, we have to send it out through UPS, USPS, through the mail system.
It's
So
gotta
we
be
have to
mailed.
mail it to everybody.
Correct.
And is that about what to mail? We have to do it, but again, that's an expense. We kind of, sort of, I heard you say that with Robeson saying they won't vote for it,
Correct.
this is probably not going to pass. So why would we spend the money to have it not pass?
I'd like to respond. First of all, Matt, your comment about the limit not being variable with inflation, you're absolutely right. There's 2 components. One would be inflationary, adjusted based upon the 20% of our gross. But the 3 million is a fixed limit, and if it were to be a possibility that this would be enacted, I'd be on board with your concern. To the point, though, I don't see that this is going to become an enforced regulation because of what Robeson is essentially promising to do by vetoing it. So it's kind of a moot point in my mind, but you're correct in what you're saying. And then my last point would be, we don't have a choice to incur the $2,000 expense or whatever it is, but again, the point you're making is correct.
And to answer your question, Sean, we've had a few conversations with legal counsel, and I've tried to find a way, just this last 24 hours, not to incur that expense, and legal counsel continues to maintain the position that the statutes require us to move forward with the vote.
I've got a more basic question. I think you said there were 457 signatures,
Correct.
which is 10% more than the 32 approximate number of lots we have. Is that the word 10%?
Okay.
Have we confirmed that those 457, none of those were from the same lot?
Correct. We went through our entire database and validated
So
all
they
those
were
signatures.
every one of the 457 were different lots.
Every one were.
Okay. But you're saying there's really no way, the only way we could stop this vote if the individuals who presented it to the board rescinded it?
That would be correct.
So
All
they-
457 would have to rescind it.
So the 457 would rescind it, not the people that presented it to the board?
No, the 457.
presented the
The 457 signed it expecting to have a vote.
And to make one more point, this board is powerless to correct the wording of this petition. And so if we wanted to put the inflation factor in there and we can't change this petition in any way.
I would just add that once Robeson leaves us alone, we could change the CCRs again and look to change that concern over that 3 million cap.
That's correct.
Does anybody know if Robeson has approved any changes to the CC&Rs in the last 10 years?
I think the only change, so far as I'm told, that they supported was the capital improvement fund fee for new owners, because that didn't really have an effect on their business. It was just resales.
So their statement that they said we will not approve any changes is not 100% correct. They just won't approve this particular change.
Well, they didn't say they wouldn't ever support anything ever because they have. They just said moving forward, they're not going to entertain support for any CCNR amendments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and maybe it's because I was in a narcotic stupor most of November and December, but who started this petition? Who had people sign?
The Residents for Responsible Spending Club.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further conversation or comment from the board members? Any comments from the floor? Yes, sir. Come on up to the mic, sir.
How difficult would it be to contact those 457 people and see if they're willing to rescind it? Would that be cheaper than having to vote?
I don't know. I don't know. All 457 would have to.
Yeah. Well, if we explain to them that it's not going to happen regardless of what they think.
You'd only need to rescind about 150 of those votes, right? Because that would be less than 10% then?
You're probably correct.
So if those 10%, 150 or so people that signed it knew that Robeson would not approve it, they're going to veto it, and because they signed that, it's going to cost us X dollars to have this vote, maybe they would rescind it.
Michael, it's from a legal perspective, this board has no authority to go back to the petitioners to ask them to withdraw it. That would be on the Responsible Spending Club. This board can't do that.
Okay. I don't have a response to that.
Neither do I, sir.
Anybody who wants any comment on this, come down to the microphones.
Yes, sir.
I'm Dick Schrader, Unit 49, Lot 9. First of all, a point of order, Darren. I respect what you're doing in making this presentation, but shouldn't this motion and the last motion be made by the president of the organization?
Well, presidents normally don't make motions. Usually the board members make motions and the president.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm learning how you organize a meeting. Thank you. My last comment, this is obviously a very political topic. And it seems that Janine, the name of the organization is the
Residents for Responsible Spending Club.
I'm probably one of the people that signed that petition, and I have to admit that I didn't think of this inflationary factor. Matt, you're spot on. I'm just surprised that such a smart group of people as you all are, you didn't think of this.
Yes, ma'am.
What if you allowed a little bit more time on your end, and perhaps they would end up signing something to rescind it after they gain this knowledge after this meeting to save the money? I would think the club might consider, and the people who have signed it, consider signing something to rescind it once the word gets out. I mean, when would you have to send out the letters? Can you?
10 to 50 days before the meeting.
Okay.
That's what the law states.
The statute doesn't say or provide direction with regard to how soon you have to set the meeting. But once you set the meeting, the notice can be no less than 10, no more than 50 days. But according to legal counsel, you need to set the meeting in a reasonable time frame.
Right. Well, that would be my suggestion. Allow a little time. Word gets out. We try to get a list of people who perhaps signed it to save you the money. And I agree with the comment about the inflationary topic. The industry standard in this area, because I looked it up, for other communities, actually it was a very liberal amount to start with the 20%. It's actually 10% for most of the other communities in Arizona, but it'd be better to get it rescinded if Robeson has already stated that he is going to veto for sure this particular one. Though maybe if he got an overwhelming vote, maybe he would change his mind, but.
He might.
No, he probably won't, but who knows? I mean, Robeson also, wife is also running for governor, so you never know what they're going to do then. But in any case, I think the word would get out, and people who signed it might be willing to come down to the office or whatever and sign something, or perhaps the club can facilitate having the list in a couple locations and rescind the petition if possible. Just give a little bit more time and get the word out.
So I see our course of action is we have to set this date, but during that period of time, the club could come up with the paperwork to have these people rescind this. And if in fact that was presented to the office prior to this meeting, then we could cancel the meeting and it would take this whole problem away.
I think that in addition to setting the meeting date, probably 30 days before the meeting date, you'd have to send out the ballot and give people 30 days to cast their ballots.
Okay, so
right?
they would have to move very
so
quickly.
they would have to move really quickly, within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, they'd have 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that would be put upon that group, and if they performed, fine. If they didn't, we have to continue on with this vote.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a perception issue here too. In the last year or so, within the community that I'm aware of, there's been a much improved perception of the board's listening, of the board's communication. It wasn't like that a couple years ago. I couldn't go to the pool, I couldn't go to Mahjong, I couldn't go to Paper Crafters, I couldn't go to anything without hearing about our board, and no one was telling us what was going on, and things were done without the community's general knowledge. So I hear what you're all saying about that extra thousands of dollars, but if the perception becomes the board stopped this petition, you have to kind of worry how the spin will be on that, because I think the board has really, in my limited perception, the board has gotten much more popular and is trusted much more in the last year or two than it was before. So you just might want to take that into consideration too. Am I making sense? If you get a petition from 400 and some people about something and then move to make it go away, the perception is going to be you're trying to control people's natural desire to have some input into what's going on.
Well, as Matt has said, we have no intentions of going through the process of stopping this. We have no authority to stop this.
Okay.
So we can't do that. It has to be the residents of responsible spending that would go to stop it, get the rescinded of the signatures, and then present that to the board. If they present it to the board has no choice but to stop it based on those signatures, or rescinding of the signatures.
Okay. I'm just saying, I think the communication is going to be important, so it doesn't come out, or the general perception is you did stop it. That's all. And by
Yes,
the
sir.
way, thank you so much for the improved communication in the last couple of years.
Hi, my name is Mike Zedek. I live at 617 East Oakwood. And my problem is, I don't understand why we borrow money when HOA 1 has a $4 million surplus. I mean, we need to run this like a business, and I appreciate the board being here and listening to us, the homeowners, but we need to not spend money that we don't have. And I don't know how many votes Robeson has. I don't know how we got into this position, but basically we need to just live within our means. Thank you.
I would like to clarify, our surplus runs larger than HOA 1. Our surplus is larger than HOA 1.
Okay, then, they tell me that the golf courses are losing money, so we rebuild the golf course to benefit Robeson because he's selling lots, and I don't know how many lots he owns, but that doesn't make financial sense.
Well, just
when he's vetoing our spending power, why are we borrowing money if we have a surplus?
I just want to make one thing clear. Yeah, we have subsidies for this and subsidies for that, but we generate about $4 to $5 million. I'm guessing after 2025, maybe during 2025, it's going to be closer to the 5 million. Don't hold me to it, but there's a lot of people working hard to get things in that direction. And that goes towards maintaining all the facilities for everybody that owns lots, which are mainly us, not Robeson, okay? Again, I just want to reiterate, whenever I hear something that's contrary to the perception that we have a very financially strong HOA, I'm going to just keep saying this over and over again.
Sure.
All right? You're correct, people are correct in pointing out that golf over the last 2 years, when we had a course closed, essentially, the subsidies for golf got pretty high. My guess is that this year, the subsidy per household is going to be somewhere in the $150 per household per year range. And based upon the various forums I participated in, that seems to be acceptable to the vast majority of our homeowners. They don't want to lose $1.2 million or $1 million, but a subsidy of maybe $500,000 for golf, a subsidy that's now adjusted for the discounts for food and beverages in the $300,000 to $350,000 range. It's my understanding that based upon private clubs, that's getting into a competitive range, and that's what it's about. Having all of our facilities compete, both financially and from a quality of service and experience standpoint. And it's not so much about conversations about trying to get to break even on this or that. That's not the business we're in.
I understand that, and I support the golf. I support what the board did, needed to be done. I don't mind paying, but per capita for the golfers, everybody should get the same benefit. I use the pool and the hot tub. It's falling apart, it's filthy, and I don't want to get off beat here, but if you have a surplus, why are you borrowing money?
Can I make a point, sir? There's nobody on this stage that's advocating borrowing any money. This is an initiative to put some kind of limits on the board's authority to borrow money, and if we were to exceed that for some reason, you all, the community, would have to approve it. But there is nobody up here that has any plan to borrow $1.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Denise Anthony, Unit 50, Lot 51. I think we're exercising some short-term memory issues here. In 2024, the first proposal in front of you was a $4,600 assessment. Why was that incurred? Because a $6 million golf loan was taken out without a community vote. That is what this petition was driving to address. It was negotiated down to a $1,500 assessment in July, again, to pay off a loan we did not vote for. The protection of you as residents is what this petition was about. There is a solution possibly between the petitioners, and again, in concern for the residents, to a board who would make a pledge to not take out a loan, which I hear nobody wants to now, but in 2022, guess what? It happened. So what's an agreement that we could reach between the petitioners and the board to pledge? I know a board pledge only lasts as long as the board is in place. But the short-term solution of that saves $2,000. But remember, the assessment was $46, $44, and finally $1,500. So we don't want to be short-sighted in the fact that controls do not exist in HOA 2. They do exist in HOA 1. They do exist at Heritage Highlands in Dove Mountain. We are sitting unprotected as residents from this. Hopefully we've learned a lesson, but that's why there was a petition. That's why we could ask the board to take a pledge to not take out a loan. Perhaps then the petitioners would agree to rescind their petition. But this is a lesson in history of just last year and the turmoil of our financial situation. Don't forget it.
Well, the hope here is that Robeson will be done with us in '27, and there are no plans to do anything with the preserved course until '28 or '9, and we are putting money aside for that, so we don't have to even think about doing special assessments or loans. It's already being planned, which it wasn't in the past.
Any further comments from the board? Any further comments from the floor? There's a motion and a second. Oh. Can you move closer to the mic a little bit? Yeah.
I'm thinking about ways that what looks like a problem right now could be turned into an opportunity. What has happened, of course, has happened. But there's an opportunity here to let the greater community know that there was a group of very concerned citizens that did what they could to protect their future interests. They ran into, obviously, a major roadblock, Darren, that you have apprised everyone of in terms of Robeson's just absolutely throwing down a wall and saying no changes to the CC&Rs. Most members of this community would have no detailed understanding that that possibility was there when they signed that petition. Most people would not believe that during transition we would have ever agreed to such binding language that would handicap us for what needed to be done 20-some years later. So I'm suggesting that the board take a position on this, a position of concern, of appreciation, and let the community know what the facts are. That here's what we must do, and it is an opportunity for you to understand, as Mr. Campbell said, this board is committed to not take out further loans. We've heard the message. We can't do anything about it in our formal language right now, but we've made this commitment to you. Meanwhile, because none of us wants to spend money that doesn't take us anywhere, meanwhile, come help us out and let's do what we need to do to get this petition off the block so we don't have to conduct an expensive election here. So put it in the, basically in the category of here's an opportunity for communication to the greater public about what's happened, where the board is right now, what the rules really are. They might not have any, they should abandon any designs that any language in there that they would like improved is going to happen before Robeson is out of here, and make sure that that's just a new understanding by people way beyond those that work with this day in and day out.
Yes, sir.
Dale Tate, Unit 35, Lot 63. Janine, I just want to ask, is there any Ice Cube's chance in hell that that club would consider rescinding the survey?
I am no longer, hello? I am no longer in leadership position of the club since I was elected to the board, nor is Sherry. And the club has a meeting in February, but that might be too late. But I think that the club members, their direction and their focus was to get the change through. So my suggestion is we take the vote and we get an overwhelming response from the community. Everyone works hard to get 78% of the community to vote on something. And then they did it. They did it for getting the option 3 down and the option 4 in a yes position. So if we get an overwhelming response, and we get the yes vote, we go back to Robeson. And we suggest he rethink his thoughts, since this particular change could not possibly impact his business. And if he's made the exception once to do it for the CIF, why shouldn't he make it here? That would be my position. But I'd leave it up to the leadership, the current leadership, to look at it and make their own plans.
Okay, the board's hands are tied with this, excuse me just for a second, and we have a lot of things to get to, and we don't have a lot of time, so make your comment. I think we should move on, or we'll have to cut this meeting short.
Two things, I'll be quick. I think the intent of that club was a good intent. It seems pretty clear Robeson's going to say no. Let's say it costs $3,000 to $5,000. I don't like wasting money, and it will waste money if the answer is a predetermined no. But in comparison to the $900,000 and the $1 million we spent on golf, it's nothing. And then the only other thing I would say is there a way to make, since you're so knowledgeable in this, is there a way to make an amendment internally that the board of directors can agree to adhere to, that would put some type of criteria or that limit with an inflation cap, or is that like totally off the table? Thank you.
Well, this is state law, and we have to follow state law, so it's a good suggestion, but right now we can't touch it.
Larry, could I just whispered in Janine's ear. We can accomplish the same thing by putting a policy together, put these parameters in the policy, and we do exactly what Ms. Taylor talked about, and let the community know the commitment of this board is that we recognize the fact that the community wants controls put in place, and we just do it through a policy letter. We don't need a CC&R change to accomplish the same outcome.
You're correct about that, Matt. A policy can be changed by a future board. I think this was something that, because of the $6 million loan, the residents wanted some kind of absolute protection, and I can't blame them. I was upset about that loan myself. But we can do the policy, knowing that in the future, if something came up, a board could change a policy.
Well, Robeson's going to be gone someday.
Boy, he's going to be gone sooner than later, I hope. We still have to do this vote.
So, Mr. President, let me ask the board, suppose Janine made the motion and Sherry seconded it to set the meeting date for March 17th to proceed with the ballot vote. So maybe that motion, for discussion purposes, could be modified to say that we've set the date for March 17th and we'll proceed with the ballot vote unless the association's presented with a petition with that same petition that has less than 10% total signatures on it by February 15th.
Is March 17th the last day we could have that?
No, it's not. It's not set in concrete.
What if we extended that out as far as we can later in March, and then it gives them more time if they want to do this to get the people to rescind their petition?
We could extend it out.
What would be the latest date? Do we know?
There's really no latest date, right? The statutes are silent on how soon the meeting needs to be held. It just needs to be held in a reasonable time limit. The only time limits that we have in the statutes are no less than 10, no more than 50 days notice. So once we set the date, then those notices requirements come into play. So we could push the meeting back to April 1st, for example, and say by March 1st, if we don't have a revised petition that has less than 10%, which means it wouldn't qualify, then the matter goes away.
Would someone like to make amended motion? The amended motion would be to
I
push
amend my own motion, is it allowed?
Yes, you would have to amend your own motion, and then Sherry would have to second it.
Okay. I amend the motion to, move forward with the vote in, the special meeting and the vote in April 1.
That's in the statutes.
And? And allow the residents for responsible spending to decide whether they want to rescind their votes.
Yeah, so
Is that
I'm not going to ask you to say that again.
okay, no, okay, I amend my motion to accept the petition and set a special member meeting April 1st and proceed with the ballot vote unless the residents for responsible spending move forward with rescinding at least 10% of the vote.
Okay, so can I help you with that? So set the meeting date for April 1st.
Right.
Unless the association is presented with the original petition that reduces the signatures to less than 10%.
What he said.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you want to second that, Sherry, then the motion's back on the floor.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Okay. My only comment is that's April Fool's Day, so are we in trouble?
So is there any further comment from the board?
I suggest you meet with the residents for responsible spending, Darren.
I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that.
I will support this, but I would just make the comment that I think we're overcomplicating it. I think the last gentleman's point, you never want to hear a treasurer say $33,000 to $5,000 isn't a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to the point that the public has told us they have this concern, they signed a document, and now we're complicating that for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but I will support the motion anyway.
Any further comment from the board? All in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, unanimous. Got through that. Okay, appoint executive committee plus one
Oh,
rules.
great, policy, can't wait.
Appoint executive committee plus one rules committee member to review board policies. Next slide, please. So there's a number of policies. Most of the policies that we have were developed quickly, I think, at the time of transition, and many of them should be updated. And my suggestion to the board was let's put a committee together, an executive committee of the board, maybe do a couple policies, a couple policies a month. We can work through this list over the course of the next year and get all these policies updated. So that being said, is there a motion from the board to appoint 3 members and 1 rules committee member to this executive
I make a
committee?
motion to appoint executive committee plus 1 rules committee member to review the board policies. And those appointees are Darren Shaw, Michael Lean, Sean Kreiderman, myself, Janine Grippo, and Chuck Kill.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And is there further discussion among the board? Is there any comments from the floor? Okay, all in favor, aye? All opposed? That's unanimous. We're getting there. Architectural and Landscape Committee rule revisions. Is Bruce here? Come on up, Bruce. I'll be back in a little bit.
Yeah, hi, I'm the Bruce Shapey, Chair of the ALC. Next slide. I just wanted to let you know we brought just some minor wording changes to the committee or to the board last month, and we went out for a 21-day review. We received we did receive 43 comments, and we're now asking for the board to approve those so that we can complete those minor modifications. Next slide. This is just a little rundown. Of the 43 comments, 10 simply said we approve. A couple of people reported typos in different parts of the document, which we will certainly fix. A couple had questions, which I will respond to. 10, we considered future changes because they weren't really the topics that we were working on, and so we'll just consider those for future changes to the guidelines. Of those that we did look at, 8 people were talking about stumps, and they were asking about, whether we, really had to cut down stumps on trees that we cut down, and we said yes, we wanted them either dug out, or we did change one part of the text to say you can cut the trunk below grade so that it's not visible. That's one change we made. Second thing regarding focal trees in 35, there was just a question about whether one focal tree was enough for a duplex building. We cleaned up the wording. There were some other people that made comments about other things, but in total, the ALC moved to go ahead with the changes, a couple of wording changes from the what we submitted to the community last month. So next slide. We suggest
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the proposed revisions to the ALC guidelines presented by Bruce.
I'll second it.
Any further comments on the board? Any comments from the audience? All in favor? Aye? Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Okay, bylaw amendment. Next slide, please. Our treasurer proposes that the bylaws be amended, specifically where the treasurer's requirements are concerned. Article 7, amendment to the bylaws. These bylaws may be amended by affirmative vote of a majority of the board of directors. So the board can amend its own bylaws. A membership vote is not required. The bylaws may not be amended, though, insofar as such amendment would not be consistent with the declaration, supplement declaration, or the articles of incorporation. So next slide, please. So you can see the language on the screen. I don't know that I need to read all that, but the proposed amendment is to say that the treasurer shall oversee the corporation's funds and securities and shall also oversee the development of the annual budget and the keeping of accounts, receipts, and disbursements in the books belonging to the corporation. Oversees the accounting for the deposit of monies and other valuable effects in the name and to the credit of the corporation in such depositories as may be designated by the board of directors. Determine that monthly bank reconciliations are completed on a timely basis. Determine that an annual update of the asset register of real and personal property of the corp is being prepared on a timely basis, and report any observed abnormalities or deficiencies to the board. As your chief operating officer, I don't see a concern with that change. It's not a substantial change, but it's a change that lessens the amount of actual involvement that the treasurer has to ensure all these things get done, rather than just oversee it and understand that it's been done. So I don't think that puts the corporation at risk, and I will entertain a motion to either accept, modify, or reject the proposal.
I make a motion to accept the proposal to modify the bylaw amendment as written.
I would second.
Is there any further discussion from the board? Any comments from the audience? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Recreation and Activities Fair. This fair is scheduled for Saturday, February 8th. The fair will be held at the Clubhouse Ballroom. There will be a table set up for the board, and the board needs to appoint a director or directors that'll be available for that day's event.
We have 4 of us that are going to be there.
Okay.
So that would be Chuck, Sherry, Janine, and myself. And if someone else would like to join us, please do so if you're here.
Well, I don't know that a motion's necessary if you have the slate already decided, so we can just move right through there. Now we're at member comments.
Darren, I'm sorry, sir. Before we do that, Larry, could I make a pitch to the community about SPAC? The Saddlebrook Public Affairs Commission is a joint commission between HOA 1 and HOA 2. Each HOA has 4 seats on that commission. HOA 2 currently fills 1 of its 4 seats. I'm now the liaison to the SPAC. Chuck's been working this for a couple years. I had lunch with the president of HOA 1 on Friday, and I asked him, tell me why you think SPAC's important to HOA 1. And what he conveyed to me was he sees it as a mechanism for both boards to be able to lean on, for both communities to be involved in doing work that benefits all the residents of the community. And so I wanted to do this. Chuck has been trying for a long time, and we've been advertising these positions without any success. I'm looking for civic-minded residents that would like to be involved with. Yesterday, we had our State of the County address, and Jeff brought in the A-team. Our sheriff was here. We had lunch with them yesterday, both boards. And so this is my plea, is I want to breathe life into the Saddlebrook Public Affairs Commission. I cannot do that if I don't get some residents to step up and fill these seats. Thank you.
And how would they do that, Matt?
The advertisement's in the Monday Message. Every week Chuck's been working this hard for a long time. I just want to, people are going to watch this, and somebody out there is going to see it. And if you know somebody that's got the kind of background that would be useful in helping us deal with Oro Valley, or helping us deal with the county, or working on initiatives that would benefit all 9,000 plus residents of Saddlebrook, I'm looking for you.
And I had the opportunity to attend one of their meetings a couple of weeks ago. It's a good group, and they're doing really good work. So I don't think the time commitment's that much. So if you have some related background, I would definitely encourage you to ask more about those open positions. Member comment period. Are there any member comments? Come on up to the microphone. Yes, sir.
Steve Mason, Unit 43. I've missed the last 2 meetings, but I want to take an opportunity to thank the board for improved correspondence for this last year. I think it was a step forward, a more positive attitude by the whole community. And also to welcome Mr. Shaw, well qualified, a very positive addition. I would like to take the opportunity to talk about one concern I have, which is estate sales. These are very popular, well-attended meetings that are also traffic hazards. This really got my attention last year. There was an estate sale on Catalina Hills Drive. Of course, Catalina Hills Drive is a traffic hazard #1 in this Saddlebrook. That day I was going up the street, happened to be following the safety patrol. They got to the intersection just before the estate sale. Patrol turned and merrily went on his way. As I was going up the hill, I had to stop twice because of pedestrians darting across the street. And at one point, I had to slide over as far as I could so the car coming the other way could edge past me. Recommendation I would add is maybe we could consider having safety patrol at estate sales. We would charge the estate sales to cover the fees for this. I think it would go a long way in managing parking and the traffic, both auto and pedestrian, and might prevent accidents, perhaps even a fatality. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi,
I'm Jennifer Citron, Unit 28. Lots of cool stuff I heard today about QR codes and good money management, and kudos for all of that. You saw the emotion generated just around the concept of borrowing and things being done. I would like to say that you may well have that same generation of emotion and concern among the residents for the purchase of land and another building that's going to entail cost to do the building, cost of ongoing maintenance and operation. There's a lot of us that feel like we don't need anything new until the things that we have are well taken care of. And there's still a ton of people out there who are really angry about the CAM operation in Area 5, and will continue that feeling toward improvements for a, quote, CAM facility when we don't think you need more people, we don't think you need the big machine, we don't like what you're doing. So I would say you're treading on icy ground there. Thank you.
I would like to respond to that. 2 months ago, Denise Anthony kept preaching to me about we needed to take care of the CAM/maintenance facility issue, and I had not taken a tour to look at it at that point. So I have to admit I was very skeptical. Once I actually invested some of my time and took a tour of the facilities, I changed my attitude real quick. The facilities there are falling apart. We have equipment on top of equipment on top of equipment, some of which maybe we should be getting rid of, but that's a separate subject. And we are landlocked right now as far as we're running out of space. I don't know what we're going to have to pay for the property, but unless it's exorbitant, we really need it. And I can't tell you how much I applaud Larry and Ray and others that have been working to try to make this a possibility. The last point I would make is that it's unclear to me what the cost will be, the investment required for the buildings. And I think that there will be a reasonable debate to be had once we get to that point. But for right now, it's about getting the land hopefully at a reasonable price, and we'll go from there. Is that fair? No?
Let me say one thing. The dirty little secret in Saddlebrook is that the residents don't get a chance to see that facility. When I got the tour, when I came on the board a year ago, Ray took me down there, and the only reason the state is allowing us to buy it was because it's a safety issue. If it wasn't a safety issue, they would never sell us an acre. They want to sell the whole plot between Edwin Road, Saddlebrook Boulevard, Eagle Crest, and us, and that is for sale. And the reason why it was configured the way it is now was not what we asked for, but they felt that they would still be able to sell the rest of the land. So if you have any concerns, go look at that maintenance facility. There's no room in there for anything. And those guys, we have employees, and that's our responsibility.
Yes, ma'am.
She's suggesting they rebuild and reconfigure.
Yeah.
How did Robeson get along with
Okay,
all those
well, they got
years?
along because it was only for the golf maintenance, and the building was falling apart. The problem is that they're using the building, and if you go in there and try to shut the whole thing down, there's no golf maintenance going on. What are you going to do with the equipment? Park it in the neighbors' garages? You just can't do it. So we have to go forward and do something that is actually reasonable and correct, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Diana Steinke, Unit 31. I'm going to try real hard to be within the 2 minutes. After many years of neglect, the plan for the 5 to 8 foot no man's land was finally assigned to common area. And we thought we were going to get selective pruning and removal of only dead and grossly overgrown plants and trees. The 8 feet turned into 38 feet. We spent $200,000 on a machine that rapes everything in its path and leaves very unsightly chaff behind. Many acres of Saddlebrook HOA2 have been really destroyed, not maintained, and to the outrage of a lot of residents. Some people think it's good, some people don't. The Audubon Society gave us a 5-page missive telling us what a mistake we were making. No other state agencies were consulted, and they all, the ones that I talked to, all said they would have done free analyses to help us mitigate the damage that we're doing. The habitat for small animals and birds has been relatively destroyed. I don't think you'll see a bunny in HOA2 anymore. The coyotes are nice and fat because they've eaten their complete supply of food down to nothing, and now they're going sleeping in people's Corvettes in their garages because they've gone to new areas to try and find food sources. A lot of them have migrated to HOA1. They can't sustain them. This was all done in good faith, but without any real knowledge. And I guess my request is that the board would immediately put a moratorium on any more level 5 destruction. Mountain View Boulevard is unsightly. We just had Terrace Wind stripped by the golf cart path there, and now we're looking at 3 exposed piles of rock and sand and a dirt lot, and it just really is, I can't personally think of anything that's been done appropriate for level 5, and we're still removing trees for mistletoe, and trees can live 70 or 80 years with mistletoe, and the birds like the mistletoe, and to remove trees in this environment to me is just, well, the whole thing is borderline criminal. I would love to see it stop.
I agree with you. A lot of mistakes were made. It was a learning process, and there's been new policies put into place to take care of exactly what you're talking about. And I'll let Darren, did you want to mention what's going on now?
Well, I'm starting to get more involved in the CAM program. Obviously, when I started out the meeting, I told you guys I've only been here a couple months, and there's certainly a lot that I'm looking into. And I just started looking into the CAM program and trying to find some time to spend out in the field to see what they're doing. And I think right now the plan is to finish up 31. They're in 31 right now. They got another week there, and then they're going to move back up to the preserve and focus on level 4. And then when level 4 is complete, they're going to focus on finishing up level 5 on the golf course adjacencies. So the homes that are on the golf course, those areas are going to be the focus. And once that's done, I believe that those areas will be maintained by the golf crew as part of the golf course maintenance program. So I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm not prepared to send the CAM team out in the residential areas at this point for level 5 until we finish up level 4 in the preserve, finish up level 4 wherever else we need to finish it up, and work on those golf course adjacencies. And then by that time, I should have a good assessment in terms of what I think, what Ray thinks, what our team thinks about how the best way the program should move forward. And of course, we'll consult with the committee and the board. So I don't think you'll see a lot of level 5 stuff going on, except on the golf course, the next few months, and then we'll figure out what the plan's going to be.
And the scope is being changed also. When they first started,
correct,
it was just clear cut everything, and that's totally changed now. So if you're in that area, you got stuck with that. But what we're seeing now, of course, they've stopped at level 5 right now. Many of these areas now they've left the cactus and a lot of the trees. In fact, I think we have a new policy that if you remove a tree, you plant a tree.
Correct.
It's in the works.
Yes, ma'am.
Mona Devine, Unit 45. When you talk about residents not being able to see these facilities that are in disrepair, it's been mentioned before at previous board meetings, but not followed up. There is technology. I suggest you do a short video on the really points of both Mountain View kitchen problems and the CAM facility so that residents can see what you're talking about. And in particular, when you're talking about purchasing land and maybe doing a building, I think it's going to be very important for communications. So you don't have to do a tour for all the residents when you can just take a video.
I think that's a good idea. Any more member comments? Next slide, please. Upcoming events. No, we're right. We're good.
Well, February 11th really is February 9th, isn't it?
It's February 8th.
February 8th. See, I'm even wrong. Okay, so February 8th instead of the 11th. And then the working board meetings at 2 o'clock. Yeah, this was.
It's been changed.
It's been changed. Mine's not changed.
You have like version 1, Larry.
Charlie, it's your fault.
So we have the COO Coffee February 5th in the Mountain View Ballroom East. February 8th is Recreation Activity Club Fair at Mountain View. February 25th, board working session, 10 a.m. That's the time that I received, 10. And March 3rd, presentation hosted by Saddlebrook PAC in the Know on H2O. So that's going to be a pretty cool program. When I went to the PAC meeting, they talked about that, and they'll have some educators here on the state of our water situation in Arizona, and they'll also have representatives here from JW Water to talk about that buyout of the water company. So if you have time that day, you might want to put that on your schedule. So that concludes the business for today, and Mr. President, it's up to you to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
No, you don't need a
We
motion to
I'm just
adjourn.
going to adjourn this meeting. It's over.
It's over.
We did it right on time, folks. Well, we're 4 minutes early. Thank
I
you
make
for
a motion
coming.
to adjourn the meeting.